have to throw that in every once in a while.
Does it sound to you like, I think it's the beginning of Dateline? Isn't there like one of those like true crime TV shows that starts with that kind of same sound?
A little bit.
It just rung true for me. We've been doing this for months. I was like, that sounds like Dateline.
I hear this intro in my sleep now, and I've never thought of that.
I will be driving and just go, dee-dee-dee-dee-dee-dee.
Yes.
I'm like, wait, what?
Oh, hello, spooky soulmates. I hope you're having a fantastic day, as always, and we are about to creep you out.
Yes. These are like one of my favorite. Okay, so I have several favorites. I love our listener stories.
Yep.
Because you guys are so freaking like poetic.
Yep. Oh, such good writers.
Seriously.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I can't believe the submissions we get. And then these ghost stories episodes are fantastic.
Yep.
Because I just love getting spooked.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have an upcoming series that you guys are going to hear. I think it starts in October. We're going to do just scary stories.
That's going to be great.
Yeah. And they're like written to freak you out. So I'm so excited.
Yes. Yeah, I think ghost stories are my top, but I love my crazy creatures. I love my paranormal beings.
Ones,
yeah. They're not mythical. I mean, because they're real. Yeah,
but supernatural beasts.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, this is all fun. We have a great little gig here. We love just hanging out, talking about these things, getting spooked. It's really a dream.
Yes.
I love it.
And I have to tell you this before I forget. So this week we got a video monitor for Jack's room. And I refused to get one when he was first born because I had heard that people had like had them get hacked. Yeah. And so it freaked me out. But then I can't remember if I told the group about this or not, but Jack almost climbed out of a window, and I'm not completely sure that it wasn't supernaturally influenced. So I decided it would be a good time, since we're having another baby, to get cameras for both rooms and have a monitor so I can see what's going on. And we initially told my son, because he's 3 years old and he has fears and anxieties, and we told him that he was getting a robot in his room because he loves robots. So we get it, and I have videos of him, like, the first time he saw me move it, I wasn't in the room, and it just panned, and he goes, ah! He comes running, Mom! He's like crying, telling me about his robot was watching him, and it moved, and I was like, it's just me. And it took him forever to comprehend that it's just Mom, you know, that the voice talking through the monitor is Mom.
Yeah.
But now, I told him this story over dinner. I was like, the robot wants you to name it so it can watch out for you. It can't watch out for you unless you name it. So it's really frustrating. It's trying to communicate with you. That's why it moves, you know?
Yeah. He's like, it's Mom. I'm going to name it Mom.
Well, no, he apparently named it Elf.
Oh.
And my husband was the one that was like initiating the naming. And so while they were at it, my son also has this huge fear of smoke alarms. So they named the smoke alarm Grover. Oh. And so now he feels like both things are watching out for him, and it's great.
That's really nice.
So I'm like, this is going okay. Okay. But then I realized the monitor, like, you can turn it so that you can still have the volume, but turn the like actual video camera part off.
Yep.
When you're not like actively watching it. It turns on when there's movement in the room. And it has done this multiple times when nobody's in the room. And I'm just like, why did I have to go get a video monitor? Because I'll just be sitting there. Jack's next to me. We're chilling. And then all of a sudden his video monitor lights up. And I'm like hyper aware. And then I can't figure out if it's dust. I don't know how to figure this out. But I swear to God, there will be times I see orbs fly across the screen. And I'm just like...
We'll just say it's dust. Because I see
but
those
it
too.
moves so erratically.
Yeah.
It'll like come in from the right bottom and then go straight up.
Like the Tic Tac craft in our last episode.
It's not aliens. I know that much.
All right.
But I'm just sitting there like, oh my God, is there like something in my kid's room, you know? So I got freaked out last night. So we put him in our bed. I'm just like, dang it. I don't know if this is a good idea.
Time to anoint the doors again.
Yeah, I know.
Well, it's just our daily life. Time to anoint the doors again. Oh, well. Do you want to do the where to find us? Because you're so much better at it.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
All right. You can start with our Facebook group, the Good Luck Sleeping Podcast. That's where we post all of our evidence, and most of our community involvement is in there as well.
It's my favorite.
It is. Okay, so then Instagram, you can find us Good Luck Sleeping Podcast. Twitter is GL Sleeping. And then you can send any of your personal paranormal encounters or ones that you hear of or true crime encounters to goodlucksleepingpodcast@gmail.com. Also, our website is goodlucksleeping.libsyn.com. And we are also on Spotify, Stitcher, iTunes, and Google Play.
See, that's why Kayla does it, because I did it in the last episode we recorded, and I'm like, and I think, is it the Good Luck Sleeping or just Good Luck? Oh, dang it. So really, that's where she shines.
At least I shine somewhere.
you shine in many. You're very shiny, okay? But not oily, so don't worry about
Thanks.
it. Mm-hmm. All right, guys, so we're just going to jump right into these stories.
Cue the creepy music.
I was going to make it with my mouth. With my mouth.
Like,
what an odd way to say it. I was going to make sounds with my mouth for you guys, but it's going to interfere with the music that Kayla puts on, so I'm not going to do that. So I like to do these stories in a few ways. A lot of the past Ghost Stories episodes, I have watched a show and then kind of just like explained what I saw, described what was going on in the episode.
Right.
I did that for one of my stories, but I found some other really good ones online that I'm going to read. This is kind of a longer one, so we're going to start with this. Kick it off. So this was on a show that I'm sure many of you watch and are aware of. If you're into our podcast, you're into the paranormal. So this is from A Haunting.
Ooh, yeah. I don't have access to that one, but I used to, and it's really interesting.
I think it was on Netflix for a while.
Oh,
Might still be.
They took it off now.
So this is season 10, episode 1, and it takes place in Summitville, California in 2012. So the main character in this episode is named Julissa or Julissa. I think they pronounced it Julissa, so that's where I'm going. So her and her mother, who was a single mother, Crystal, they moved in with a friend for a fresh start. The lady that they lived with was named Gemma, and all of them are kind of vaguely interested in the beginning of the story in the paranormal and the spirit world. So one day, the three women decide to go into a local occult shop in the store.
As one does.
As one does. I was wondering, is there any around here that we could go to? Side note, this story has to do with the Ouija board, and I almost purchased one today. It's the Stranger Things one. I'm sure you guys have maybe seen it because it was in Target for a while. And I almost got it, but everybody from the podcast group on Facebook was like, no, don't do it.
I'm over there like...
And honestly, after I watched this show after I posted that, and I'm like, ooh, maybe they're right. So, okay. So they went into the occult shop, and the store owner stopped Julissa, and she felt that Julissa had natural abilities and a strong connection to the spiritual world. So Julissa talks that she said that the store owner actually grabbed her hand, and like they kind of had a moment in the store, which I think would have totally weirded me out, but she was totally fine just going with it. So this piqued Julissa's interest in the paranormal, and she purchased some tarot cards. So she was kind of just like using these with friends. And again, if you remember, she had just moved into the area. So she had started at a new school and didn't have many friends. But she quickly met a girl named Brittany at her new school, and they became best friends very quickly. And Brittany introduced Julissa to a boy named Vince, and the three of them were inseparable. They were really good friends, and they hung out all the time. One night, the three of them were hanging out, but the girls had to go home early. Vince was walking alone towards his house when he was bombarded by a group of masked men with knives. Vince didn't survive the attack, and he was actually killed as part of a gang initiation.
Oh my gosh!
I know. Dark turn real quick. So the girls were obviously devastated. Brittany had kind of a crush on Vince, and I think it was reciprocated. So she was especially devastated. And they felt like speaking with Vince one last time could help give them closure. So Julissa remembered seeing a Ouija board that she kind of felt drawn to at the occult shop, but instead of purchasing it, she ended up creating one of her own.
Oh, you don't do that.
So she described how she put herself into this board and into creating it and all of her energy, and she stated that she wanted to give life to something that was inanimate. And she did. So Julissa and Brittany set up the board, and they began to use it with the intention of speaking with Vince. Brittany had her doubts because it was a kind of a, homemade gimmicky board, and she truly didn't believe that it would work, but because she was so distraught over the loss of Vince that, she decided to give it a try. In the beginning of their experience with the board, Julissa envisioned Brittany in a protective white light before beginning the communication, but she didn't protect herself because she wanted to allow the board to use her in order to communicate with her friend. The planchette began to move before they even put their hands on it. It started, kind of just slowly moving around. So the girls reached for it and they began to ask it questions such as, "Is anyone here with us?" The board said yes, and they claimed that they were speaking to Vince just before the planchette began going haywire. It was kind of, erratically. Tic-tac space aircraft movement. Erratic.
That's your new
Yes.
reference point.
So it was swirling around the board, and the girls were getting very scared, and Julissa wanted to close the board, but they felt a strong gust of wind shake the room, and it actually knocked a picture off of her dresser and shattered the glass. The picture was of her friend Brittany, and Vince. The girls did end up closing the board, and they realized that the entity that they were communicating with was never Vince. Julissa was determined
It was there before they started. Of course it wasn't. It was never invited. It just came in.
Julissa was determined never to use a spirit board again. As time passed, Julissa began to believe something dark had been let in through the board. She didn't want to let Gemma or her mom know about the entity because she was afraid of being reprimanded. So she decided to do some research on her own and try to understand what had happened. One night, while Julissa was in bed trying to sleep, she was overtaken by worries and thoughts about Vince's death. Her nightmares became very real, and the terrifying things in her dreams would begin to manifest themselves into reality. Julissa's mom, Crystal, woke up one morning to a substance splashed all over the walls. There was no explanation for it, and it was as something had come inside and vandalized their home. The women also found a capital letter D etched into the wall.
Oh, good. That doesn't mean demon or anything.
Julissa did some research because she wanted to get rid of the board, and her research told her to cut it up into 7 pieces and bury it in 7 different holes in the backyard.
Aren't you supposed to burn them?
I guess you're definitely not supposed to burn them.
Okay.
Who knows? I guess it's where you research.
I would just like to point out that when you create your own Ouija board, you have to do it so precisely because one way is actually like a demon portal and the other way is a Ouija board. So I'm guessing she probably accidentally did a demon portal.
I almost made my own last week.
Oh, Rachel. I am carrying an unborn baby.
I'm so sorry, but I wanted, not with you. Because I know that.
You think I would be affected?
No, not with you. I wasn't going to do it with you. I was going to make Ryan do it.
No, but it would get attached to your house or you, and then I would come in here, and I'm extra freaking sensitive, so then it would be like, ooh, easy target.
I mean, we could have done it on the back porch or something,
You think these things are bound by walls?
I mean, I would oil the wall. I had a plan. I had this whole plan.
It was a bad plan, Rachel.
It was, but I had poster board, and I was like, I'm going to do it. And I wasn't going to research it at all because I know myself.
You were going to make it out of
and I was just going to, and use a shot glass.
Oh my God.
Okay, bottom line is I didn't. All right?
I almost had banged the microphone out of frustration.
So she cut up the board into 7 pieces, buried it, and then she prayed that would end the torment. Do you think it did?
But it didn't.
Several nights later, Julissa was attacked by the entity. She was scratched 3 times on her neck, and the letter D was scratched onto her back. Finally, Julissa confides in her mom and Gemma about the Ouija board experience, and Crystal is taken aback because it brought back a similar memory of herself and a friend using a spirit board as kids and communicating with a spirit named Deanna.
No. It's not Deanna.
Capital letter D, though.
No.
After communicating with Deanna, she began to see shadow people in her home. This is Crystal's experience. And Crystal is sure that it's Deanna that is tormenting her daughter now. So the women do what they always do in these shows, and they bring in a paranormal team to help. The 3-person team believes that the spirit boards are dangerous because it invites lower-level entities to gain access to our world because they are just waiting for an unknown person to open the portal.
Yeah, and she didn't even invite her.
Right.
It just came in.
Right. Well, I think she did, by putting her energy into it and setting up the experience. It was just ready to go. So the team began their investigation and quickly realized that the women were in danger. One of the investigators was a medium, and she felt a negative entity take over her body as she was interviewing Crystal. She was so overtaken that she began to feel the need to kill Crystal. Something in her head was saying, "Kill Crystal now." Obviously, she fought off that presence, but she knew that she was in over her head with a demonic entity that wanted to hurt the women.
Oh, gee, not Deanna.
Yeah, it was the strongest presence that she had ever encountered in all of her years as an investigator. So the group told the women that they were not equipped to help them and told them that they needed to seek help elsewhere.
Exercise.
To this day, the women have not been able to release themselves from Deanna.
What?
And are still being haunted.
They still think it's Deanna.
Well, I mean, I'm sure that they are aware that it's something else that's calling itself Deanna, but
how are they alive?
Yeah. Julissa is determined to strengthen her gifts and overcome the evil that wants to do her family harm. Good luck sleeping. I'm just kidding.
We are never using a Ouija board. Ever.
I mean, you and I probably aren't.
You don't need to either, woman. Okay, I was going to do a funny one, but I just feel the need to do my Ouija board story next.
Oh, how ironic.
Okay. This is titled True Story, Never Play with a Ouija Board.
I believe it, except maybe I don't want to follow that.
You believe it, but you just want to challenge it is the problem.
I really do.
This story happened in October of 2004. Back when I was still a third-year high school student, my friends and I stuck around the school late at night after our annual Halloween party. We had agreed to try out my friend's Ouija board. It wasn't the brightest idea, Rachel, but we needed a thrill. We found a nice spot under a huge Nara tree, whatever that is.
Yeah, where are they again?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
And proceeded with our half-assed ritual. There were 5 of us, 2 boys and 3 girls. We were all expecting some kind of paranormal contact. Rumors had it our school was haunted, but we never really experienced anything firsthand, and it was Halloween when all the spirits came out to play. We all wanted to get spooked. Also, we've never seen a Ouija board firsthand before, so we were pretty excited.
They should have just made their own.
No, they shouldn't have, Rachel. They shouldn't have done any of this. Our school was an old Spanish colonial house built in the 1800s when the Spaniards still occupied the Philippines. This is in the Philippines.
Oh, okay.
We were in a section of the school that doesn't get used often. Located beside a creepy old Jesuit house, people only go there when they needed to use the restroom, store equipment on one of the sheds, or make out with their boyfriends or girlfriends.
Mm-hmm.
We sat down in the middle of an open space with only an exposed bare bulb nearby illuminating the surroundings. We were all having a laugh, scaring each other with what-if scenarios. It was your typical dumb kid doing dumb things. As I glance at Rachel pointedly.
Why did you pause?
My friend who brought the Ouija board proceeded to place it in the middle of our circle. If I remember correctly, it was the glow-in-the-dark version, which we found hilarious, but it gave us the ability to see what was written in the dark.
It's actually very smart.
Not knowing what to do and going after what we'd seen in the movies, we all proceeded to place our index finger on top of the planchette. We sat there looking at each other until one of us said, "What's next?" We didn't know if there was a proper way to start the ritual, plus the board didn't come with instructions. So we decided to just throw in a question. "Is anyone there?" I called out into the darkness. "If there are spirits living here, please talk to us," one of the girls
Please
joined in.
stand up. Please stand up.
We clearly had no idea what we were doing. Still, nothing happened, not even the slightest bit of wind. One of my friends jerked the planchette and the girl who brought the Ouija board screamed, breaking the silence. We all laughed at how ridiculous it was. After a bit of joking around, we decided to give it another go. We all placed our index finger on the planchette once more and asked, "If there's anyone here, we would like to make contact." "Don't break the circle," one of my friends jokingly said. "Shut up," I whispered. They really, really worked on the dialogue.
there. Like, I am there with them right now. Yeah.
We were just about ready to give up when the wind started to pick up. The stillness broke and the darkness around us seemed to move. Just a coincidence, we thought. "Okay, don't break the circle," I yelled out. "Is anyone there?" I was excited. It was like a scene from a movie with dirt and dead leaves swirling around us. "Guys, I'm scared," my friend sitting beside me said. I checked. This is a true story, okay? It's in the title.
Yeah. You know me. I believe everything.
My mom warned me about playing with forces we don't know. "Did you die here? Were you killed during the war? Are you the headless priest that roams these halls? Are you a hottie?" my friend giggled. At this point, we were all throwing random stupid questions. Nothing. "This is bullshit. I don't want to do this anymore," my friend said, exasperated. We were all thinking the same. Just then, a group of dogs from the neighboring house started barking at us through the chain link fence. These 6 dogs were growling and showing teeth. We all screamed and without finishing the ritual, bolted right out of there.
They didn't close the board.
We didn't see each other until after Halloween break, and this is where the story gets creepy. One of the girls told us about a weird experience she had the night after playing with the Ouija board. She had gotten home late after hanging out with her friends from the neighborhood when she realized she forgot the keys to her house. So she called her brother up, who was then still sharing a room with her, and what he said creeped the hell out of her. He swore she was already home. He claimed to have seen her walk in a while ago and that she looked really tired and saw her head straight to bed. Creepy, but no need to freak ourselves out, was all we thought. Besides, her brother must have just been tired and seeing things. But then, my other friend started telling us about an encounter she had that Halloween night. She was going up to her room when the lights started flickering as she was ascending the staircase. Your typical horror movie visuals, shrug it off to faulty wiring. But just then she saw the door to her room open and a dark figure stepped out and stood atop of their staircase. She couldn't make out the entity's face, but she recounted that she couldn't move and felt utter dread as the figure stared down at her. No way, my best friend who just joined in the conversation said in disbelief. Something happened to me as well. He recalled that he was sleeping one night when he woke up feeling really uncomfortable. He described his vision as having TV-like static, and a feeling of heaviness surrounded him. He looked around the room, and that's when he saw a bloody, charred face with piercing red eyes grinning at him through the window.
Ew.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing because I had an almost run-in with death that night. After the ritual, I was sleeping in our sedan on the way home after fooling around with the Ouija board when I felt our car jerk. I woke up instantly. Looking out the window, I found out that we'd been hit by a huge oil tanker. I don't know how it jerked and you got hit by a tanker, but... I panicked and leapt out of the car. Luckily, my mom and I survived the crash since the front of the car was a total wreck. I still don't have an explanation why those things happened to us, but thank God nothing happened after that. I never played or got near a Ouija board since.
I'm really glad that little run-in with an oil tanker didn't do you in.
I know! I'm like, you felt the car jerk? It's an oil tanker.
Okay, all right.
It's a true story, Rachel.
It's
in the title.
I believe it. I believe it. We try so hard to be scary.
I know. It's so hard for us unless we're genuinely freaked out.
I know. All right. This story is by Philoseum from Reddit, and this is in the paranormal section, so it has more of a chance of being true than if it was listed in No Sleep, so I'm on it. Mm-hmm. I believe it. It's called There's Something Stalking in the Fields Outside of Our House. I live in Kentucky. It's very backwards and rural here, and all Kayla's from Kentucky.
I just like inwardly went
And although I've lived here for a year, I'm still not used to the extreme amount of woods and isolated areas. Coming from the beaches in Florida, things are very different here, and it's still taking me a while to adapt to my surroundings.
I mean, I lived in the city, so...
Oh, okay.
But
yeah, you're very civilized. Absolutely.
I'm worldly, Rachel.
You are.
Remember.
I live in my parents' house in a rural area. Although it's next to a highway, it's not necessarily the most populated area, with 2 gas stations and a dollar store. That's it for about 20 minutes in all directions, decently rural, in my opinion. Anyway, we live on an acre of land and about 30 yards behind our house is a large 150-acre farm belonging to a farmer. If you didn't know what a farm belonged to. Sorry. Keep in mind, we've never seen this guy before, but he does plant his plants during plant season.
Because he's a farmer.
He plants his plants during plant season.
Does it actually say that?
It does.
Oh my God.
Anyway, enough of the basic information. For the year we've lived up here, there's been a lot of weird shit going on. To name a few, there's been times where I've seen a ghost, I've heard random noises, and although aliens may not be considered quote-unquote paranormal, oh they are, sir. I swear to you that I've heard a high-frequency noise and seen lights in the sky. We do live 30 miles from Fort Knox, so it could be military stuff perhaps. Now this is where the road takes a deep turn. I, as well as my family, have noticed that none of our surrounding neighbors, about 6 of them, are out past around 9 p.m. at night. Now I can understand
they're all farmers and they got to be up at 5 a.m.
to do their plant stuff. Now I can understand that, but I mean there was always at least a few people up and about during the night where I came from, but there's not even a single late night party or anything here. Nothing at all. These people do not, or to reiterate, apparently, these people do not come out at night. I thought it was odd at first, but I didn't pay it much notice until recently. Me and a few friends would occasionally get together and go out around 1 a.m. on the back porch and smoke a joint. This is going really well. And stargaze and just have a good time. I will say that this is the post of the week.
It is.
No, it really is.
Okay.
It's the Reddit post of the week in Paranormal. Each time we would do that, the field 100 feet away would start rustling with noises. As if someone was running through the underbrush. Me and my friends, higher than kites, would normally laugh it off, but that was only until we heard a shrieking-like noise from that area. Needless to say, we haven't done that ever since, and that was about a month ago. Ever since then, that has mentally effed me up. I'm not going to use too many.
Yeah, we got to keep it.
We got to keep it at least
PG-13.
a little. Yeah, a little on the DL in that area. I constantly worried that there's some type of wolf or something over there that lurks at night, and that was my assumption up until about 2 nights ago. 2 nights ago.
Remember how we were talking about our poetic writing listeners? This person is clearly not one of them.
2 nights ago, I was outside at about 11:18 on the spot. We have a compost bin, so after I cleaned the kitchen, I took the scraps of food and all that other shit out there. It was very dark but peaceful. I should mention now that we have a steel fence around our acre of property, with the compost at the far back of the property next to the fence. The fence also has a gate on it that opens into the farm field. I don't know why. Anyway, as I made my way to the compost, a huge sense of an unnerving feeling erupted all around me. I felt as if I was being watched or stalked. It was dark as hell and I couldn't see anything. I only had enough visible light from our outside porch light. I dumped the scraps of food into the compost and heard the same exact rustling noise through the underbrush. I got ballsy here. I had a feeling there was some jackass teen or someone else trying to scare me, so I stood still for about 20 seconds in the direction of the noise. Here's where I start to panic. I took my phone out of my pocket, shook it twice to turn on the flashlight, and shined it. Does that really work?
Is that like a feature?
Nope. We're shaking our phones. Anyway, apparently when you shake it twice, turns on. It doesn't work.
We need to figure that out.
Nothing really to see but bushes and soybean plants, but something odd caught my eyes. A reflection. I stood confused for a second and shined my light back over to where the reflection was, and holy effing shit, there was some, maybe 4 feet tall thing crouched in some soybean plants, and it was looking right at me with red eyes.
But it was a reflection.
I cannot make this up, man. I have tears in my own eyes right now typing this. I'm not quite sure how I acted. I know I ran inside as fast as I could, and even though my asthma is horrible, that's the fastest I've ever ran. I'm so sorry. I'm really trying hard not to laugh. Needless to say, I came into the house, locked the door, and ran downstairs into the basement. My room has no windows, both a blessing and a curse, but there was no way in hell that effing monstrosity was coming into my room. I passed the hell out, woke up last night about 7, missed dinner and everything else, but immediately went outside to the same spot. Nothing was there. I even walked into the field to see if maybe what I saw were red berries or something, but nothing. Kayla, this was scarier when I read it on my own. I promise.
I have a question, because I genuinely don't know the answer to this.
Yeah.
Does pot smoking not make your asthma worse?
I mean, yeah, I would definitely think it would.
And it apparently killed a couple brain cells on this dude.
We're nearing the end of this riveting tale. Okay. After walking back to the house, the next door neighbor was out. I immediately called out to him, and as he came over, I asked him if he's ever seen anything abnormal around here, which his reply was, "Everyone I know, including myself, goes inside before nightfall. There's tales of hellcats and night crawlers all around here." And with that, he went to go put out his grill and went inside.
Well, that's because Kentucky's wildcat territory.
Is it? Is that like a sports ball thing?
Yes, it's
okay.
The college team Wildcats.
Cool.
Big fan.
Yeah, big sports ball fan. I didn't sleep much last night. Mainly, I was talking to friends about that shit. And since most of them live near Elizabethtown, about 25 minutes away, decent-sized city, they have no idea what the F it was. Anyway, I'm lost for words at this point. If you've read this far, thank you very much for putting the time in to read this. I'm very freaked the F out right now.
Oh my God.
I don't even know what to do. It could be an animal, but that thing looked nothing like an animal I've ever seen. I'm debating right now about going outside with a high beam flashlight and scanning the area from my porch. But to be honest, I may shit myself this time. Please, if anyone is from Kentucky, Kayla, fill me in.
The sheer amount of crap in that story just proves it had to be real, because there was nothing eloquent about any of that.
No.
He was just like, dude, it's just so crazy, man. It's just like, oh my God.
I'm not joking. He has like 2 pages worth of edits and explanations that I'm not going to get into.
Is it anything essential?
It was a bipedal thing, because somebody said it could have been like a bobcat or something.
Yeah, but
he
it was
said
squatting.
It was on two legs. People are telling him to get
stalking him.
People are telling him to get trail cams.
You know, with the shrieking, it easily could have been like a mountain lion.
Oh, okay, wait. Edit 2. Holy F. Okay, this is very odd. I did some research by our county records, and apparently the land owned by the farmer used to be government property in the 1960s to the 80s.
Whoa, government experiment.
This is very strange. It didn't state exactly why, and I know almost all property is government owned until you buy it, but back in the 1890s, it was owned by farmers yet again, it says, but yet again, and then bought out. All that was available there...
Holy crap, that's what happens to land.
All that was available there for the government control was not available. Like, it literally said unavailable. What? I'll figure out a way to post a picture of this in the City Hall records. Also, there was a man-made crater built somewhere out there. It used to be over 600 acres of controlled property, meaning the rest is all around. It even looks like our house used to be on it. This definitely bats an eye. I'm starting to wonder if there was some sort of experiment or if there was a reason for it. I definitely find this strange.
Do you feel that distinct lack of chill bumps?
I was going to say that. Did you feel those goosebumps all over your body when I said that? Guys, good luck sleeping with that one too, because I don't know how to explain it.
I can't like that.
You're welcome for that one.
Okay.
Kayla, top that.
Okay, since we're already laughing, there was one that it wasn't even that scary, but you know with like Reddit how people can comment and sometimes the comments are just gold.
They're just, yeah. People are very witty.
Yes. So I just included them all. Okay, so the story is, not sure if this is considered paranormal, but when I get fevers as a child, I would always in my, I don't know this word, but pain-infused state, hear a man counting in a very deep voice. He would count from 1 and up. As the numbers get larger, the voice gets louder and more intense. It started to get less frequent as I grew older, and now I do not experience it anymore. I've brushed it aside as a recurring nightmare until only recently I've learned that my sister would experience the exact same thing when she was younger as well. It's not the scariest thing, but it does send shivers down my spine trying to comprehend this. And someone commented, imagine if one day the voice started counting down from 10, pants would be shat. And someone said, until it got to -1, -2, then be like, oh, come on. Demon voice, this week we will be learning about imaginary numbers. Calculators will not be permitted. Blood-curdling cackle. Learning to count with Satan. Learn to count in 666 easy steps. God hates him. Demons want to be him. And that's where it ends. But I was just like, that is so creative. I love Reddit and the internet.
We should label this episode Ghost Stories / Making Fun of Reddit.
Yeah. Okay, now we've joked around enough.
Let's bring it back in, guys.
Yes.
This is supposed to be scary.
It's supposed to be scary. So, since we've laughed enough, let's bring it back. Let's make it creepy again.
Well, mine was creepy, but okay, whatever.
I don't remember where I found this story, but it's some dude. And it's terrifying.
Okay,
so this was several years ago when I was a total deadbeat and lived with my then girlfriend's parents.
I wish you wouldn't beat yourself up.
They had a tri-level house with the basement that contained our living space and my girlfriend and I's bedroom. Upstairs was the living space for everyone else, the dining room and kitchen, and then the third level had the master bedroom and 2 additional bedrooms for my girlfriend's sisters.
Okay.
I was home alone one night with her parents off with friends, my girlfriend at a friend's, and her sisters were at an all-night church thing. I elected to stay home and play World of Warcraft all night.
Wow. That's what it's called, guys.
Where my computer and desk sat, right above my head, was an AC vent. Often I could hear her sister playing in her room from that vent. I was leveling my paladin or something when I heard laughing and giggling coming from the vent. Nobody was supposed to be home.
That's like the sound of children laughing is like the best sound in the world unless you don't have kids.
Exactly. Okay, nobody was supposed to be home, so my heart picked up. I glanced at the clock on my computer and it read 1:36 a.m. I remember this all very distinctly. I went to go investigate and headed upstairs. The way the landing sits is at the top of those stairs. You can turn left and either go upstairs or go into the kitchen. I climbed the second set of stairs and opened the first door on the left, which was her young sister's room, which was directly above the basement.
Okay.
Inside, I used the light of my phone to illuminate as best I could. You know, we're in like the 21st century when we no longer have flashlights. We have phones with lights on them.
Yeah, and if you shake your phone twice, your flashlight
Apparently
might not turn on.
Okay, it's getting scary. We gotta get serious.
Okay, sorry.
I saw a small figure. What I assumed was a small girl wrapped in a white sheet in the center of the room. Cue pants shitting. This figure, this young girl, stops playing with the dolls and slowly looks at me.
Oh.
It lets out the most ear-shattering scream you can imagine.
Oh, gosh.
My skin crawls just thinking about it and my chest tightens just remembering it. I wish I could tell you what transpired, but I remember waking up at the bottom of the landing right next to the door of the kitchen. I stumbled in the kitchen to get a drink of water and contemplate what the heck just happened. I glanced at the clock on the microwave. The clock read 4:46 a.m. We never found the sheet the next day, but the dolls the figure was playing with were sitting in the middle of the room, away from the toy chest, which they were inside of that afternoon when she cleaned her room, which was across the room. He has some edits here.
Okay.
Everyone is saying to turn on the light. That's all well and good, and I would have done that. However, the light in the room operated on a pull cord connected to a fan in the center of the room. Flicking the light switch would have done me no good.
Yeah.
Edit number 2. Someone said I should have taken photos of the ghost. Yes, I should have, since I had my phone. However, this phone was so old it didn't have a camera. All it was used for was calling people and apparently flashlights.
Yeah. Okay. That brings us back
Can
around.
you imagine some little girl slowly turning to look at you and going, ah!
No.
Like, but like in that creepy demon thing that I can't do? Yeah.
No. I cannot.
Okay. Bring on the creep.
I bring out this really creepy person from like behind the curtain. Here he is, Kayla. So this came from somewhere on the internet in the vastness of Google. I had been on the phone with my then boyfriend, and he said something that made me think he was chauvinistic, and I remember telling him that if he knew anything about me, he knew exactly where I was going to go. And I hung up the phone and got in my car. I drove to the park. The sun was kind of down below the tree line, but it wasn't dark yet, and I pulled into the parking lot. I thought it was weird that there were 2 cars pulled side by side and talking to each other. When I got out, the guy in the truck just stared at me in a horrible way. You know, when someone just looks at you like they're looking through you as if you don't exist. I thought, well, this is weird. It's late and no one's ever here. And then I thought, whatever, they're leaving and I don't care. I have my own problems. I only took my keys with me because I didn't want a big purse banging around, and I headed across the field, which you have to cross through to get to the woods because there's no trail. I was taking my time and calming down, and then I realized it got really quiet. I didn't hear the birds and the squirrels anymore. I just heard something big moving through the woods. I thought to myself, maybe it's a dog. And then I heard the voices. The first voice is a male's voice, and he said, I know I saw her go this way, and she couldn't have gotten far. And the second voice comes in, and it's quieter, and it says, shh, she'll hear you. Okay, so there are 2 men in the woods, and they're looking for something, obviously. And I kept thinking, it must be their dog. They must have lost their dog.
Shh, she'll hear you.
And then I thought they wouldn't try to sneak up on it. I stood there frozen because that's the kind of person I am. I could hear them getting closer to me, and I don't know how long I stood there, but I was waiting for them to get to me, but I was completely frozen. And then I heard the other voice. It was distorted, like if you hear something talking through a closed door or talking underwater. You could understand what they were saying, but the voice wasn't right. It wasn't in my head because it had a volume and a pitch that changed that my thoughts definitely don't do. I could almost feel that where it was coming from. It was behind me and a little above, like it was taller than me. It just said, go to the river now. I don't know if I was more scared of the fact that there's some disembodied voice or person talking to me or that there are 2 men in the woods. I listened to the voice because I didn't really have other options. I took off toward the river. I made a ton of noise because I was just going as fast as I could, and then the voice came back and said, "No," quietly. I got to the river and jumped down the embankment. I squished myself against it, squeezing down into the smallest, tightest ball that I could. The voice kept telling me to stay, and I just sat there, hoping whatever it was in the woods was going to leave and that I wasn't having some kind of a breakdown. And I just kept hearing them move through the woods, and I could tell that they had split off. As I sat there, the voice kept telling me to stay and to be quiet over and over again, like it was trying to comfort me. I could hear what sounded like someone was right above me, and if I leaned out, they could see me. But I had to look. I just tilted my head up a tiny bit, and I could see the tips of these construction boots hanging over the edge, and I could see hanging next to them this dirty old rope, just swinging. I don't think I even thought anything. I was so scared. I just tried not to breathe. It felt like hours, but I knew it couldn't have been that long. The voice was even completely silent. There was nothing but me hearing this man breathing. He started to walk away at some point, and the voice just kept telling me to wait. So I waited. And finally the voice said, go to the field, go now." It was screaming at me so loud. I ran through the woods, and I just got to the field, far, far from the cars in the street. It was getting dark, but I could see the parking lot, and it was so far away. I was running, and I start hearing footsteps running, and at first they're farther away, but they're so much faster than I am, barreling after me. But there was nothing. I fully expected to see at least one of the men, but it was silent. The only thing I could think was that the footsteps must have belonged to that voice. And then I heard it again, screaming at the top of its lungs that I needed to run right now. And the footsteps came back, and then they're in pace with me, running next to me through the field. I had a thousand crazy thoughts because none of this made any sense. Finally, I get to my car, and I see that both cars were parked in different spaces with nobody in them. I refused to look behind me, and if there hadn't been a voice, I would probably be a missing persons case. It got me out there.
Okay. Those 2 men were serial killers, and the disembodied voice was their previous victim.
Dun, dun, dun. Isn't that
That's
intense?
Terrifying. I would never have gone down there if I'd seen 2 men staring at me strangely in the first place.
Absolutely not. But she made a choice, and luckily there was somebody
She was mad at her chauvinistic boyfriend.
Yeah. Luckily there was something looking out for her.
Yes. Okay. I think this one was on Reddit.
What was the username?
I was having a hard time copying the usernames for some reason. My computer was not cooperating.
Yeah.
Okay, so the most unsettling paranormal experience this person had was 7 years ago. I had the house to myself for the weekend and had to let the dog out the back to pee pretty late in the night. I'd gone out with her to have a look at the stars and the moon, seeing as it was clear for once, pretty rare in Wales. A few minutes later, I hear a low growling noise. It's the dog. She was on the patio with a defensive stance and growling up at the roof, which was strange enough, seeing as I'd never heard her growl in years. I look up where she's looking, and the best way to describe it would be as a large but skinny creature.
Ooh.
It looked like a human from the silhouette that I could see, but it was hunched on all fours, a large bulbous head maybe twice the size of a man's, and limbs that seemed to have an extra joint or very long hands.
Ew.
It walked from one end of the roof to the other, and I got the distinct impression that it was looking at me. I pretty much shat myself, dragged the dog inside, and locked the doors and windows. The dog insisted on staying in my room that night, and she would lift her head up anytime there was an odd scratching noise from the attic. Never saw anything like that again after that night. The dog went back to never staying in my room, and all was well. It just creeped me out something fierce, especially since it looked so solid, like an actual thing and not a ghost or whatever.
Ooh.
Maybe that's not the best one for a ghost story, but
No,
it was creepy.
It was paranormal. Yeah.
This one's called My Father's Twin. My father has a twin brother who passed away about 4 years ago. He was a hardworking, simple man who was loved by everyone. He was diagnosed with cancer, but the doctors caught it really early on, and according to them, with treatment, he had a 90% plus survival rate. But while he was in the hospital, he suddenly passed away without any warning. This was a day after the doctors had told my family that he was doing well in treatment and that we shouldn't even worry about anything. I was at school at the time, so I couldn't travel to Korea to be with my family, but my mother and father immediately left New Jersey to be there. My father told me later that they tried several times to talk to the doctors about what happened, but they would not meet or give my family an explanation. Just that these unforeseeable things happen all the time in the medical field.
Oh, that's upsetting.
Okay, I understand. I have 2 sisters who are both in the medical field, and they've both told me some pretty crazy stories too, so I understood. But something happened that really shook my family and made us believe that something terrible had happened.
Mm-hmm.
My mother returned to New Jersey after the funeral. My father decided to stay in Korea for a while so that he could take care of his brother's things. My uncle was a VP for a successful company, so there was a lot of things my father had to help with. One night, my aunt, who had cooped herself up in her room for days mourning, decided that she needed to leave the room and get some sun. She met some friends, ate out, and came back home late around 11 p.m. She told us that she felt a little better, that going out made her feel human again. When she sat down on her bed, she immediately felt a presence in her room. She couldn't quite describe it. She just knew someone or something was there. It wasn't like the feeling that she was being watched, but rather just this thick, heavy air about the room itself. Instinctively, she looked at her bedside table where a picture of my uncle was and immediately bolted out of the room. She called my father and told him he needed to come immediately. When my father got there, he said that my aunt was sitting outside with a blank expression like she had seen some shit. She told my father to go to her room and look at his brother's picture. My uncle's eyes in the picture looked like they were bleeding.
Oh.
There were what looked like a stream of blood flowing from both eyes. My father opened up the frame and touched the picture to see if someone in the family thought it would be funny to paint it on or something, but according to him, he says that the blood would not wipe off, that it was a part of the picture. To this day, my father thinks the doctor screwed up and accidentally killed his brother and covered it up, and the picture with blood flowing from his eyes was my uncle telling us that he had passed away under ill circumstances.
Ooh. Well, that's upsetting.
Yeah.
Jeez. Okay. When I was about 20, a few years ago, I kept having a dream about a woman with long black hair named Aurora.
Ew, it's never good when they have long black hair.
They were different dreams, but for some reason, her distinct face and name always ended up in them. It got to the point where I would wake up frustrated and confused, trying to Google her name to find out how I was connected to her. After a few months, she stopped showing up, and I dismissed it, thinking my brain was just being a scumbag. Fast forward a few years later, Halloween 2009, and I'm in the car with a friend stopped at a gas station. I'm about to pull out and merge into a highway when I get a phone call from a random number. So I stopped the car, but no one answered. There was a person behind me who grew impatient, honked at me, and then swerved in front of me instead of waiting for the 2 seconds for me to move. The second they got onto the highway, a silver Civic loses control of their wheel and crashes into the car that had swerved in front of me. I called the cops and waited at the gas station for them to come. Turns out the drivers of both cars died. It 100% would have been me if I hadn't have gotten that phone call. I called it back a few hours later out of gratitude and curiosity, and it rang 3 times and went to voicemail. Hi, you've reached Aurora. Please leave your name and number.
Oh, no.
Never had goosebumps like that in my life.
I got goosebumps.
I called it again the next day because I was that confused about the whole situation. Some woman answers, and we get to talking. I tell her my entire story, including the dreams that I had. She tells me she doesn't know how I got her number and that she never called me as far as she remembers. Weird. I ask her if she has a Facebook to confirm if she is in fact the woman in my dreams. I check her Facebook, and holy F, it's her.
Was her name like Aurora?
Yeah.
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
So she apparently has a doppelganger that saved his life.
Yeah, see, not all doppelgangers are bad.
Speaking of doppelgangers.
Oh.
This is by 1LT Obvious.
I love these.
I lived in a house that seemed to be haunted by doppelgangers. Every event that happened never involved some mysterious figure, but a known person being in a place where they should not have been. Here are a few examples. I was a teenager at the time, and I was instant messaging my girlfriend at the time with my webcam turned on. I had the viewer up so that I could see myself in the webcam. Behind me, there were the stairs leading up in the left of the camera view, and the entrance to the living room in the right of the camera view. My younger sister would typically fall asleep every night on the couch in front of the TV and then make her way up to bed in the middle of the night. At one point in my webcam view, I saw my sister leave the living room and go up the stairs. The thing that struck me as odd was that I didn't hear anything. It was an older Victorian house, so the wooden floor and stairs were loud. Without saying anything to my girlfriend, I got up and looked into the living room, and there was my sister passed out on the couch. I sat back down, and I asked my girlfriend if she had seen anything in my camera, and she said, yeah, I just saw your sister go upstairs. Another one, my family was all getting ready to go somewhere. I was sitting in the car with my mom, and we were waiting on my sister, who was still in the house. After a bit, she comes out and gets in the car and just looks at me like, what the heck? I ask her what's wrong, and she says that just before she walked out of the house, she thought I was still inside, so she yelled up the stairs, "One LT obvious, we're leaving." And apparently I yelled back, "Okay, I'll be down in a minute." Edit. Some more examples, since many people have asked. My mom woke up to someone tapping her foot, and she said someone was standing at the end of her bed who faded out after a couple seconds. She said it looked like me. I had an encounter where I woke up and felt like someone was under my covers laying against me.
Ew.
When I said something, my blanket visibly deflated and I no longer felt anything. I include this with the doppelgangers because, though I did not see it, what I felt under the blanket laid like my girlfriend would have laid against me. That's some succubus action there.
Action.
When I was 22, I was in the military and I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. It still took like a year after the diagnosis to separate from the military, but I went home on leave for the holidays about a month after the diagnosis. Anyone that has insulin-dependent diabetes typically carries around some sort of kit. Mine is a black zip-up pouch, and it has a glucometer, insulin pen, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. Right after I left home to head back from leave, my mom texts me to ask if I'm missing my diabetic kit. I look, and I'm not. She sends me a picture of a diabetic kit and asks if I know it. Oh. Apparently, my sister went into her bedroom and discovered it outside of her window, propped up like someone had set it there. Also, her bedroom window is on the second floor.
Of course it is.
Nobody else we know has diabetes.
Of course.
Gotta love those doppelgangers.
Do we? Do we have to love them?
No.
Okay, good.
And then my last one is by Abnormally Shea Dragon.
I love Reddit.
When I was 3, my parents moved us into a new neighborhood. The house was nice, but kind of old. The neighborhood was an old 50s tract home area, so it had a pretty varied group of people living there. As soon as we moved in, my dad started noticing weird things with me. He would hear me giggling and laughing in my room, and whenever he went in and asked what was so funny, I would tell him that the kids were being funny. He would also come in to wake me up and find me curled up in my closet. This happened over and over again, but my parents didn't think much of it because I was a pretty imaginative kid. The thing that wigged them out the most was that I flat out refused to walk out the front door. I would scream and yell and cry until one of my parents carried me in and out of the house. When you walked in the front door, to the right there was a closet, and to the left there was a low brick wall that separated the front door from the living room. It was about 4 feet high and about 3 feet long, just a room divider, but I never touched it or wanted to be near it. After we had lived there for a few months, my dad started making some renovations to the house. Among them was demolishing that wall. My parents dropped my brother and I off with our grandparents the day they were going to do it so that we wouldn't be underfoot. We did not end up going home for a week. When my dad knocked down the wall, he called the police. Inside the brick wall were bones that turned out to be from children.
Oh!
The cops never did figure out who put them there. The house had been owned by a lot of people, many of them who had rented it out. So it's just one of the many weird things that happened in my town that was never figured out.
Oh, that's a good one. That's terrifying.
Right.
I would look into the history of the house. I would get all the documents about who owned it before and
I know.
Really dive into that.
Even the police couldn't figure out who had done the wall, though.
Oh.
But you would think that you could like create a timeline.
Yeah.
Surely.
There has to be some sort of a paper trail.
It's a random ass brick wall that was just constructed to hide bones of children.
All right. My last one comes from Thought Catalog, which is, it honestly has a huge library of terrifying things. So if you've never gone to the Thought Catalog website.
I have. That was the one that did like the open water thing, or the deep water.
Exactly.
Yeah, that was so creepy.
All right. My wife and I swear that our daughter used to talk to ghosts when she was a toddler. She was an only child at the time, and the first instance I remember was her telling me that she was talking to Nana. That's what I called my grandmother, who passed about 15 years before my daughter was born. My daughter was young, and so I hadn't even talked to her about Nana yet. I showed her a picture and asked who she spoke to. There were 4 women, 3 of which I didn't even know, but without hesitation she pointed to my Nana. Okay, no biggie. Some months later, my wife and I are trying for baby number 2. After my wife gets pregnant, my daughter is sitting next to her on the couch, and she puts her head on her belly and says, "Mommy, there's a baby in there." Okay, maybe that's a coincidence. She overheard us saying something. A few weeks later, my wife miscarries. Maybe my daughter picked up on our sadness, but who knows. But she began to put her head on her But again, she puts her head on her stomach and says, "Mommy, there's no baby in there anymore."
Rub it in.
Oof. Then several months later, and one more very early miscarriage later, my daughter tells us, "I was talking to my brother last night, and he said that my sister is coming to live with me soon." Again, she's an only child and had no living brother. We were still trying that at this point, but had not taken any tests. We picked one up that night, and sure enough, pregnant. When the time came to reveal the gender, I wasn't even interested. My daughter had already said it was a girl, and sure enough, I have 2 daughters.
That's cute, but so creepy.
Kids are so spooky.
They really are. I think that's why like demonic entities like pretend to be them, because in one hand it's like super creepy, but the other it's also kind of disarming because you're like, but it's a kid.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. Well, yeah. People let those in.
Well, we hope that amidst the laughing, you still got some goosebumps.
Yeah, we try to end strong.
Yes, that was pretty creepy. And you may have a little difficult time sleeping tonight.
Get out your essential
so bad at
oils.
ending these.
And you might have a little difficulty sleeping tonight.
And that is why we are called Good Luck Sleeping.
Henceforth, that is our name. Mic drop. Good luck sleeping, guys.
Good luck sleeping.